with any luck, Stuart will be able to follow the slides. So this is our this crow thing. Most of you, it's caving politics at best. It's our latest great political debate. For any of you who have read anything, there's been loads of points and arguments made about crow, about access. They're often very complex and often a bit obscure. We've had barristers' opinions, we've had solicitors' opinions, very fortunately so far for free, and we've got a very expensive ballot coming up in which you're all going to be asked, do we want crow or access, or do we want to fight for it, or do we not want to fight for it? But before we start, or I go on, I'd like to emphasise a few points that have not come out as clearly as perhaps, and this is general, not just talking about Bob's thing, but in the whole sort of debate with GCA and everything else. First one, I think Bob made very clear. The crow debate is nothing new. There's been sort of murmurings about it back 49 and then in 2000. But it's got very heated, this debate, and I think we could do some moderation in the whole thing. The main point I'd like to make first is to re-emphasise Bob's point. This isn't about access to all caves, or indeed most of the caves we go to. It's a very special point about access to caves which lie on crow access land. And then there are all sorts of other sort of legal caveats about commons and all other places. It doesn't apply to the ordinary sort of caves we go to, which are on people's farmland or private land or in walled fields or anything else in general. But it's very easy to generalise, and each cave is different, so to speak. Here's the way you find them. So it's not going to apply to farmers' fields, probably. So we're actually mostly arguing, as Bob said, about caves on open moorland in Yorkshire, and frankly the way the permit system works, in effect, because that's what people are objecting to up in Yorkshire. Can you get a permit for this cave or can you not? Before we go on with the arguments, it would be my view that we as cavers don't at the moment have a landowner problem. There are no great battles with landowners anyway. We've got a system of voluntary agreements which lead to keys and in some cases, perhaps about 20 caves, and a lot of permits up in Yorkshire. But the problems we do have at the moment are, as been mentioned, largely to do with people being worried about insurance and everything else. And there might be some benefit on crow land to taking that insurance problem away. But landowners still have to have insurance in general for their public liability, and their insurance companies still get worried. Where the system falls down, which is driving this debate, is that with the older sort of committee types who run the permit and access systems, they're often busy people, they're sometimes not terribly efficient, they can sometimes be a bit difficult and arrogant, and sometimes show their mates in issuing the permits. But that's life, it's not landowners, it's not actually access rights, it's our own internal permit issuing system. To my knowledge, there are only 2 caves on crow land up in Yorkshire that have landowner consent problems. One of them's Langcliffe, where 6 cavers died many years ago, and you can understand sort of concerns about people going down Langcliffe. Lots of people still go down Langcliffe, it's just nobody gets a permit to do it. Going back to the other point, which came up after the crow debate started, conservation. Clearly we need a system of protecting caves from either vandals or people who just ride roughshod over and skew a couple of slides there on showing different sorts of caves. Do we want caves to look nice and pristine, or but the permit system doesn't work very well for that. Locking up caves may work. It's all rather difficult, honestly. We've never reached a solution ourselves within our own caving world. But my point of view would be, again, this isn't a landowner issue. It's not whether we can go down the caves, it's what we do when we go down the caves. So, to me, the real issue is actually about digging, which is where my concern comes in. Landowner relations. If we start lobbying, and this doesn't mean we can change the law, by the way, or get anything, but if we started lobbying, we run the risk of upsetting landowners. What landowner is going to now grant permission for a dig on his or her land if they're concerned about creating an automatic right of access now to get to the cave? So I can see that digging permissions are likely to get more difficult. We've got experience of that on Mendip. I know other people have different experiences up in Yorkshire. But landowner permission for digging, if you created an automatic right of access, will be problematic, I'm quite sure. Why on earth would you give permission to dig a hole in your land if it then gives everybody permission to walk over there and go down it? So, whereas the present system, you end up with an access arrangement. So, it's all, what I'm really saying is, why do we want to change? We've already got a perfectly good series of agreements. They don't work very well on our internal trading side. People don't always issue the permits, or they feel that it's the wrong month or something else. Well, my view is that can be negotiated and improved. I'm not really sure that we actually have to try and drive through access to this particularly specialised bits of land, mostly up in Yorkshire. In the past, many years ago, Cave was decided through the old MCA, the National Caving Association, the predecessor of the BCA, that cavers didn't want to be part of Crow. This wasn't an accidental thing. Years ago, it was kind of thought, no, we don't want to be part of this because we already have a whole series of access agreements. The whole system seems to be working quite well. Frankly, perhaps 30 years ago, it worked rather better with the issuing of permits. And we could stay out of it and go on with direct negotiations with landowners. Now to turn around to landowners and say, oh well, in some cases on Crow land we have an automatic right of access, I think will just damage relations. What we do need to do, and it's really not much to do with trading, is to improve our own internal systems, issuing permits and keys, and equally to try and make sure that people don't apply for permits because they're very difficult to get, and we might have a few just in case, we might want to go down that, and then the permits are used and actually not used. Nobody goes down the cave, although somebody's got a permit for it. Or other people do get down the cave and they haven't got a permit for it. It's all a bit messy. And my final point about all of this, and you saying, what we want to change for is some cost. This upcoming ballot for BCA is going to be very expensive. It's costing thousands of pounds. It's being done professionally by an outside firm. It's going to be without question, sort of absolutely perfect, providing you all fill in the damn ballot and send it back, which you've paid for, whether you send it back or not, so to speak. Somebody will count them. But it's not actually going to change anything. Because if we come out in favour of Crow rights and wanted to push for them, we're then going to have to change the constitution of the BCA so that the BCA can lobby for Crow. Because at the present, BCA is committed to maintaining good landowner relations in direct negotiations. So we're going to have a second ballot after that, and we're going to have to change the constitution. I think Bob's made some very good points, and other people, particularly up north, particularly with Leckfell and Casterton, are really determined to drive this through against the grass owners. But I think the spin-off elsewhere of our ordinary sort of local farmers, everybody else, we're going to look at cavers a bit funny, Do we really want to provide rights of access? And quite honestly, your average farmer, I hope we've seen the photograph of our average farmer on Mendip, and he is a genuine farmer. I'm going to think, do I really want to deal with people who are sort of insisting on legal rights? They don't understand what pro-land is either. So, my general opinion is, it's working at the moment. We could make it work better, but the landowners aren't the problem. The problems are largely our own internal systems. let's leave it as it is. Let's stop spending a lot of money. Let's stop trying to change the world and get on and make the world we've got work as it should. So I'll leave it there. I'm actually slightly ahead of time there, so maybe we can catch on some more time for dinner before the debate.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.